All right, if you're in the right place, this is connecting with your community. I'm Anisha. My handle is Anis6Gup. A fun fact about myself, if you search this on Google, you will find me everywhere. Also, I got my first email address when I was 6 years old, hence the 6. All right. So, who am I? Why am I here today? I'm a GitHub developer advocate intern, and that's a long way of saying I build cool things with the GitHub API. I recently launched a ship it button, which is a physical button you press to deploy your app to production. It was a blog post. It's the most successful blog post right now. I had the VP of brand marketing at GitHub reach out to me and say, thank you for writing this. So that was really amazing. And I also connect with people for a living. So I go to conferences, go to events, do public speaking, and also reach out in online communities to talk with people. Cool. My hackathon experience, I was a co-director of a hackathon called Desert Hacks, which has since now is no more, but it's okay because we actually merged to become Sun Hacks, and I was an advisor and sponsor for that hackathon. So let's go back. Connecting with your community. What does this mean? Like, why? Why are we doing this? I'm going to be talking about how I was able to connect with both internal and external communities to have either our 3 hackathons that happened in the span of 2 months come together and merge as one, and also have our first hackathon, which had little to no support, actually be able to be like the greatest hackathon to ever happen. I'm also a bit biased, so. But yeah, let's first define what does community mean. So you guys just had an awesome keynote from Joe Nash. He is the one who imparted my wisdom to define what community means to me. Community starts off as a shared environment. So for example, I come from Arizona State University. That is a really big campus. It's 60,000 people. So let's narrow that down. There's a shared interest. So I'm majoring specifically in computer science. That narrows it down maybe to 5,000, 6,000 students. But here's where it actually comes together, your shared struggle. So the biggest thing at ASU was there was only old development, like teachers are teaching Java, C, C++, but all the new technologies, new methodology for teaching technology was not there. And so when I went to a hackathon, I was like, why don't we have one of these at Arizona State? And I was not the only one who had the shared struggle. We thought we were a big group, a hackathon community that decided to start it off. But there were also 2 other groups that had similar ideas. So what I learned the hard way was don't reinvent the wheel, just realign it. This is a big motto that I go by every day. So whenever I want to start something new, I want to look at connecting with someone, I say, okay, who is already out there that is doing this? And how can I realign with them? How can I partner with them? And so I'll be going through 3 steps of action that I take whenever I approach a new community, a new place or event that will take place. So first is to identify. Not only identify your community, but identify what are you trying to do. The second one is to participate. Get involved. Charmaine, who's sitting in the front, I have seen her at all the tech events in SF, and I was only in SF 2 times over the summer, and I know who she is because I saw her throughout. And the third thing is align. Make sure that your goals align with whoever you're trying to connect with. So I'll be sharing my experiences intermixed with these 3 steps. The cool thing about these 3 steps of action is you don't necessarily need to do this in a specific order. You might only need to do 1. So we'll take a look. So identify. What are you creating or addressing? What is the problem you're trying to solve? What challenges are out there for you? What do you have to overcome before you can actually get started? And who is already doing this? I repeat, this is the biggest thing ever, especially coming from Arizona State University, where there's 60,000 students, 6 different campuses. A lot of people are already doing what I wanted to achieve. So I'm going to take a step back and go into my example of what I was creating or addressing. Bring hackathons to Arizona State. This was a movement that was happening. It was 2 years ago at Hackcon IV, where a group of 6 of us decided to go to a hackathon, or decided to go to Hackcon. What challenges are there? So our first attempt at Desert Hacks actually failed at our university. And so when we decided we wanted to do Desert Hacks once more, after we actually had a team, the school was like, what are you guys doing? Desert Hacks has a really bad name. We are not going to support you. They literally told me, if you want to do this hackathon, there's another student group that's doing a hackathon, only one will survive, and we are not giving you any support. And that was really scary to hear, but we didn't care. We decided to go externally and see, okay, what community is out there and who will help support this event. So yeah, this is kind of how I felt when the school said that. It was fine, totally fine. So who's already doing this? Well, you might know of this little organization like MLH. So we saw Hackcon, and we're like, whoa, there are already all these cool hackathon organizers that are building these hackathons from scratch at their university. How are they doing this? What resources can we take back after connecting with these organizers? At ASU particularly, as I said, we didn't have school support, but there are already clubs that were trying to basically bring new technology on campus, whether that's our mobile development club or software engineering club or video game development club, which has now turned into kind of like a VR gaming club. So there were students who are passionate about making a change, and those are the people we wanted to connect with. And then there's also a movement that I found. It was a startup ecosystem that decided we need to change the way Arizona is viewed in our tech community. It's actually really cool because Bill Gates recently bought land in Phoenix to build a smart city. It was like a over 80-acre purchase. So it's amazing kind of going back home being like, yeah, this is kind of a tech hub. We have Amazon, Intel, GoDaddy, and this huge startup community. So after you identify who you want to connect with, what you're trying to create, we actually want to participate. Be involved. Go to events. That's the biggest thing, is you want to see where can you actually connect with people. Have a conversation. It's one thing to show up, but the biggest thing is to talk with others. See where else you guys can align. And stay connected. This is the most important one that's often overlooked. Actually make a connection, whether it's friending people on Facebook, connecting with them on LinkedIn. So a way that I was able to participate in our community is I was connected to a person who was part of the Yes Phoenix movement. He called me one day. I was at my internship, but I accepted it anyways. And he's like, hey, are you free in an hour? And I was like, why? And he's like, we need volunteers for this event. Like, we really, really need help. Can you come within the hour? And I just hopped in my car. I did leave my internship a bit early, but it was okay. And then I went to this thing called the Summer Social, where I was able to volunteer, and I had really awesome conversations with people. And one of those conversations ended up being the general manager of a co-working space called Galvanize. And if you don't know about Galvanize, it's an awesome tech co-working space that has whiteboard tables. They have TVs in every room. It is like the dream place to have a hackathon. And at this time, the school decided that we couldn't use them as a venue. So instead, we were able to use Galvanize as a venue, and we stayed connected with them. And it was such a good hackathon that we ended up having our next hackathon at the same venue the next year. So how do you get involved? How do you be involved? Be willing to help. If I had not volunteered, I would not have met that general manager. And it was really cool because I actually also volunteered to sit in for a career fair for my school. And all I had to do was like talk about engineering schools. The person who sat next to me was a person from Intel, and he told me all about MHacks. And he's like, have you been? You need to go to this thing. And I was like, yeah, we're trying to bring one to ASU. And he's like, tell me when, and I will be there. So it was really cool having that connection. And then also, the person that was sitting right next to us was from GitHub. And that was my first introduction to who GitHub is and like how can we connect. And I got a ton of AutoCAD stickers. So that was pretty cool. Then you want to also be active and on the lookout in social media. So this sounds pretty simple and also kind of scary. Like, I really don't like social media. I don't like posting what I'm doing or anything, but for the sake of connecting with others and growing a tech community, it's really helpful. So Shreya, who is the admin for Lady Storm Hackathons, her friends would always ask her, why do you share this stuff on Facebook? Like, why do you comment on everything? She's like, it works. Like, now she's become a super connector where people reach out to her for opportunities, and they reach out to her with opportunities of how people can get more involved. So she's been basically that bucket of information. Also, ask about their story. So with Shreya, I connected with her by messaging her on Facebook and saying, how did you get involved? Like, how are you doing this right now? People love to talk about themselves, so it was really cool to see like how that story came to be. And go to meetups. This is a big one, especially if you are creating a hackathon for the first time or you're building a sustainable hackathon. If you find a local community, so we have Hacker Nest socials, then they actually said, hey, you're doing a hackathon, why don't you come into this space next year? We would love to have you. So we actually have a Carvana campus in Phoenix. And they're like, yeah, like we have a basketball court, like come to and visit our campus, like it's awesome. So it was really cool just kind of seeing new spaces, connecting with new people. To have a conversation. This one is really interesting because like, all you have to do is ask for a coffee or a call. Joe, actually, whenever he goes to a new city, he posts on Hackathon Hackers, hey, does anyone want to go grab a cup of coffee? I'm in San Francisco right now. And literally, like, hundreds of people comment, and he makes time for each and every one of them. And then always think, how can I help when you're having a conversation? Listen to their story, listen to what they're trying to do, and be like, okay, maybe we can work in this sense, maybe we can work in this regard. Or just keep on asking them for their advice or help. And share interest, whether that's like talking about a Netflix show or talking about how did they build their community. I got my first internship by talking about Japan, so that was a very interesting take. And that talk about Japan ended up transitioning to how I developed Unity projects and worked with Java, JavaScript, and C. So it was really interesting seeing how she was able to see what kind of technology I was working with, all from Japan. And to stay connected. This one's a big one. As I said before, connect with each other on LinkedIn and Facebook. Send a follow-up message. This is really powerful. If you send a thank you message to someone, they will remember you even more than they did before. It's really, really, really powerful. And organize your contacts. If you have not already, so the people that you connect with, you might do LinkedIn, Facebook, but if you actually have business cards or you're really trying to understand, okay, these are the main people I want to connect with, make an Airtable, make a Google Sheet of listing out people and who they are and how you want to further connect with them. That really helps you stay in touch and keeps you organized. This is something I'm still working on. I have gone from Airtable to Google Sheet to basically a bucket of business cards. So I'm really trying to understand, okay, what is the best way to organize this? So I'm just going to give you an example of how I was able to participate at Hackcon. So I got involved with Hackcon 2 years ago, Hackcon 4, and I had conversations with hackathon organizers like you. And I actually connected with someone who worked at Intel. And kind of from that story from before with Intel, I was able to get them as a big sponsor for our first hackathon. And once that money came in from Intel, our school was like, hey, we received this check. It was a lump sum from Intel, and there's a remainder of like $10,000. And they said it was for some sort of like hacks. Is this you guys? And we're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna help you guys out now, now that you actually have money. So it was really interesting to see how our external support turned into an internal school support system. The last thing, but not least, is align. Whenever you're having a conversation or whenever you're trying to work with a specific group, what are your goals? What are the community's goals? And how can you work together? I cannot emphasize this enough. So for example, I've been working with a local girls in tech group, and they really wanted to learn how to code. And so I am able to teach Git and GitHub, give an intro to it. So I was like, oh, how about I can teach you how to create a website with Git and GitHub, and then you invite the people that are part of your organization, and we can work together in order to make sure that people not only learn how to code, but they also learn version control. It was a really successful event, and it was awesome to be part of that community. So another way that I was able to align specifically within our hackathon is we needed to find a venue, and we need to bring awareness of what is going on at our university. The community's goals was to launch a co-working space for the venue, and then also ASU itself wanted to host a lot of tech events. We had a lot of different students trying to make a tech scene at ASU, but we were all disconnected. So how did we work together? For the venue, Galvanize was just launching. We were actually in the building while they were constructing it. So it was a really unique situation because how they opened the co-working space was saying, hey, we're doing a hackathon, come join us. And then for bringing awareness and hosting tech events, basically we had a lot of conversations surrounding Hackcon, surrounding having a conference together, creating a communicative tech scene, which ended up having to do with merging hackathons. So we had 3 separate organizations come together as one, and it was not overnight. It did take time. It took months to make sure we didn't have the competitive energy towards one another, but in the end, we were able to do so. So now, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. What's your story? You're gonna identify, participate, align. These are some questions that I have for you. So if you want, you can turn to the person next to you, connect with them on Facebook or LinkedIn too. I don't know why I'm just pointing out those 2 social medias. I've had people connect with me on Snapchat. So Natalie, who was the old KPCB organizer and fellow, who's now Alicia, she's awesome. I just connected with her on Snapchat, and we've been Snapchat friends ever since. And before coming to this, I asked, hey, are you going to Hackcon on Snapchat, which is a very interesting social media to connect with? But yeah, she responded, and she's like, no, but let me connect you with Alicia. So it's been cool kind of seeing those super connectors in action. So I'm going to give the room to you guys. Just turn to your partner, take some time, and talk about those. Does anyone want to kind of tell their story? It was kind of interesting going around the room and hearing some, but I didn't hear any from the back, so if you guys want to, huh? Oh, no? Hey, you kind of volunteer with the shrug.
We were talking about building communities and how to foster that.
Mm-hmm. So can we get your input?
Yeah, so we were just talking a little bit about, we're not super centralized, and then they're also working on their hackathon.
And you brought up a good point about just bringing, since if your computer science department isn't really centralized, you bring in other departments to build up a unique space instead of just trying to create a cultural computer science techie space instead.
I can kind of hear you. Can you repeat a little bit louder? I heard about centralized.
Well, she said that if your computer science department isn't really together, and you can bring in other departments to help you build up your hackathon into something more unique instead of just straightforward to computer science.
That's really cool. Yeah. So bringing other departments to come together and providing maybe more resources. I know we have our Herberger Arts School basically actually has a program where they talk about media processing, and there are a lot of different programming elements that go into that, which is kind of cool. If you go in the building, you'll see a koi pond, and you step on it and it reacts and stuff. And I never knew that school existed until I went to that building. But I really, really focused on getting those students to come to a hackathon. The biggest thing I saw was like, a lot of people didn't know what hackathons were. I wasn't really too into that community. So like, if I were to go back and do it again, maybe like get involved and talk to some of the advisors who really understand like where the programming level is at and how can we actually get them to come instead of just being like, hey, come to the hackathon, and not realizing, oh, like we need to take a step back. Hey, come to this event that's actually really cool. You guys already do awesome stuff. And so it's really cool. I know Will and Matthew here were talking about, do you guys want to share?
Sure, yeah. So at my school, University of Cincinnati, we have ACM, ACMW, IEEE, and a few other clubs. They all have different communication channels. We have Slack, and the others have their separate Slacks and other things like Facebook groups. And I was talking about like what's the best way to get them all together under one way so we can better organize events together without confusing people, like bringing them into a new environment. Like some people, they just don't have Facebook because, whatever reasons, and some people don't have Slack. But we came to the conclusion that bringing them all together under a single channel, being active on that channel of communication and talking to all the different groups all at once and organizing multiple events. They don't have to be big events, they can be smaller events that get, shared interests, sort of going between like gaming, for example. Like, people from IEEE, ACM, ACMW, they all come together to play board games, video games, stuff like that can really bring communities together.
So like the big underlying theme I want you guys to understand is you are all containers of like this knowledge about your community. You are the one who knows your community the best or the one who will know your community the best. So it's really cool to connect with people here and understand, hey, where did you guys come from? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And like, how can we talk more about that? Even before this talk, I was talking to a few folks, and it was inspiring to hear kind of like what organizations have been founded. I know Tanya, as organizing She Is Code. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
We're based out of Chicago, and our goal is to try and get more young women and women of color involved in tech. And we had our first official hackathon last fall at Western University, and we had over 100 girls in a room kind of cheering each other on, and we held their attention. So we're really excited that we're going to do it again this fall. That's why I'm here, so I'm kind of soaking up and get all the knowledge that I can. So thank you so much. It's been so wonderful. This is great.
Awesome. So I'm going to give you guys my last tidbit of kind of going beyond. So I'm actually graduated from college, and I'll be moving up to Seattle next weekend. I've already talked to a bit, I think I have 5 lunches already scheduled just because of this tech community and how welcoming it is. And all these people that I've been meeting are super connectors, and they say, oh, you're going to Seattle? I know this in Seattle. Like, you need to go there, whether it's activities to go to, people to connect with. So this is not only what you're going to experience here at HackCon. This is something you'll take in your life and kind of keep going and keep working on it forever. So definitely take this with you. It's a useful tool to have, and it's really awesome to hear people's stories. Like, that's the first thing I do whenever I talk to someone is like, oh, hey, how are you? What's your story? And so just saying that is interesting to hear. Like, either they talk about oh yeah, I just came from home watching some Gilmore Girls on Netflix, or they take me back to, oh, I graduated college and this year I had the struggle. So it's really cool to kind of see that vibe. And kind of even going beyond that is really work towards, I know some people I've had conversations with is trying to centralize the community. There are a lot of things going on. How do you get it to all come together? The best way to do that is you need to analyze your communities. There is no best way. You're the one who's going to know that. But it's really cool. I'm actually part of GitHub Campus Experts, where we have 100 people from all over the world. And I've been able to connect with people. I know John Pham, he's sitting in the street right now. He is like an awesome person to connect with. Yesterday we were talking about like working in animation and using programming tools. And I also connected with a Mexican campus expert, Juan Pablo, and he's kind of changed the way that the Mexican community is. He told me that the biggest thing that he found, it's not in numbers alone, it's finding the right people who have that passion and are driven to do so. So even if you're trying to build a sustainable hackathon, try to find someone who like has the same passion or like ignites the same passion as you do. But yeah, so that's going beyond. You can connect with me at Anisha Skip. My slides are at this bit.ly link, and you can also ask me anything. I just created this repo, so there's nothing on here, but I created an AMA as an experiment, and I'm launching it here. So that'll be interesting to see. Thank you so much for coming to this talk. I'm here if you have any questions, and yeah, all right.